Um, hey, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for finding us, finding truth, finding truth everywhere. Um, Today, we get to talk about um, Bob Harwood's teachings, Bernie. And as is my habit, I'm going to begin with a song. And I do my best. I'm going to hit pause because then I can't upload the song I won't be able to upload this recording to YouTube if I keep the song in here. So someone here remind me to hit the recording first. But I'm going to talk about the song first. The song points directly to towards the end of the recording. This idea of it being so much fun to have spiritual friends, so much fun. Like, and he kept using the word fun. Richard's not here, but um, Dr. Hawkins points to the fact that when we do this work together, it's much more effective, right? That wasn't that, and I believe that, right? But Bob Harwood wasn't talking about getting better at anything, right? He wasn't talking about being more effective and rising in consciousness. He just said once you step into the flow, um, and freedom, then life becomes all about that, A. And B, the most fun in the world is hanging out with others who are either also in the flow, or there's nothing better in the world than holding space to allow others to touch what you're experiencing. And so that's what this song means to me. And for the purpose of the recording, it is in the an open door YouTube playlist, and it's just called Better Together. So I will put recording on pause and we'll do that. Okay, so you have a list. And for those who have not attended what it involved was taking a look, and now what do we call it? Finding truth everywhere, I think. What we do here is we watch a YouTube video of teachers from all over the place, right? And then we come and we talk about how they affected us. And we don't really spend much time talking about how their teachings are pointing to things that are different. We talk about the truth that's the same in all of them. And one of the, I tend to come with a list. And there are a few things that I'll make sure I want to say, but mostly this is a conversation for all of us. So when I either say something that sparks something that you want to talk about, or there's something that you want to talk about, just, do the Zoom hand thing and we get to talk about it. The first thing though I want to say, which wasn't on my list, um, but is moving me in a way that often brings tears to my eyes these last couple of days, is how Bob Harwood showed up. Because I don't know about you, but I never knew he existed. Didn't know, didn't know him. He has no website. He actually has written two books. The one that is on Kindle Unlimited, the other one that has come and gone. You can't even find it anymore. Um, so he's not somebody that's walking through our channels, right? He's a contractor who is very happily hanging out in the flow, right? For those who were with me yesterday, I talked about how this song just dropped. I was on a walk, and are we human? Are we just dancers? Literally just dropped into my awareness. And the song's phenomenal, and it talks about all, so much of what we're doing. we have time, we could play it at the end again. Um, but I realized this morning that it's not the song so much as where did it come from. So in this particular case, I thought we have a list of 4 or 5 teachers that we predominantly know that came from different places. And I got a WhatsApp message from someone I hadn't spoken to in probably a year and a half. My friend Jenny from the Diet. And she's in Ireland, so she's not in this community. And she literally just said, I came across this and I thought of you. Um, and she dropped a link to write some of an excerpt from his book. And I clicked the link and my whole system went still. Like I'm reading about his experience when the world disappeared in this space while he was working, walking around, kind of working, talking to contractors, and realizing that the body was doing all the right things. Like the body mind was literally knew what to say to the people at the other end, but sort of like a crazy movie. He said, all of this is happening, and the person I'm speaking to is disappearing. Like there's a hole forming in his face. And he was talking about how all this emotion's coming up through him, and he didn't know if he was going to laugh or cry. And he walked out and got his car, and just this unbelievable laughter is coming through him because the selfhood dropped, right? And it took but it for him it only took a couple of hours to kind of resettle. But I'm reading this, and then I found the YouTube video. And the YouTube video is great. We're going to talk about it. This thinking mind doesn't want to hang with how did he show up in our space. So I really am inspired to keep saying that. We like to talk about following guidance or having inner wisdom, right? But ultimately, we are we are from where the guidance comes. We are the inner wisdom, and this sense of selfhood kind of blocks that. And so much of what he's talking about is how we're identifying with something that blocks the truth of who we are. And it more and more in my experience anyway, the clouds are lifting and things like that song dropping yesterday happens, or from seeming out of nowhere, we have these pointings. And I'm being guided over and over and over again to slow down and really, really, really turn around and kind of look like, where did that come? Like, appreciate that there's no way I could be who I think I am separate from you and separate from God, because if I was, these things couldn't be happening. And since separation is being proved to be an illusion, what exactly is here to worry about? So that's the first thing I want to say. Taking a breath. Izzy. This is my friend Izzy, in case anybody doesn't know her. I think most people know Izzy.
Sweetie, I missed the name of the
His name
person.
is Bob Harwood.
Okay.
And if you go to the links and replays section of An Open Door, right at the top is the link to his YouTube video.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
And it's going to move into like when I set up this replay, if you click on the replay for this talk, I'm going to have the YouTube video right in the description of the replays. Going out of my way to make all of this as simple as possible. But his name is Bob Harwood.
And how long ago did he have this awakening, his awakening?
Um, it was the final one that is described as in 1999. He was also on Backgap. Yeah, he did
Okay,
do. Yeah,
great. Thanks.
thank you. All right, so raise your hand at any time. The next thing on my list, how he informed me. It's more about who he is and less about what he said. But he really did say that this is who we are. This is natural. Now he really wanted it, and that's what he said. He said it's becoming easier and easier and easier for him to hold space for people. Um, and the only requirement really is wanting it. Like he went out of his way. Like if you want this, he calls it being in the flow or freedom. He referred at one point to Angela DeLulla, who calls it liberation. He said he's not comfortable with terms like an enlightenment or awakening because at this point there's just too much baggage around those words in a lot of circles. A and B, he said that makes it sound like it's something special. And he's like, it's not special. And it's for anyone. And he says that the requirement is wanting it, like having enough interest to like show up in meetings like this, have enough interest to do the inquiry, have enough interest to turn around and say, hey, where did that guidance just come from? Right. Um, to me, it's Nisargadatta says that the only real requirement, the word he used was earnestness. Michael Langford uses the words burning desire. But really, he said that's all you need is an interest and a desire and a willingness to inquire, to not make it special, to recognize that all of us, how could we not know who we are, by the way? Like, is that insane? Like, how could we not know who we, like, the idea that's, it's causing some chaotic sensations inside of me these days. This idea that I'm searching for who I am. Because how could we not know who we are? The third thing on my list, any tradition can point you there. And I loved this conversation, right? Even though he came, well, it's fun. Alka wrote, Ego is Strong. My buddy Joel Goldsmith likes to say the mesmerism is strong. And I think I just read the same thing with Sir Nisargadatta Maharaj. He's like the hypnotism, the sense that we're not that, but it's still just a hypnotic trance, right? And we can break it. But he said, every tradition has in Amy, the body of fence we build around the self to keep the self out. That feels like a merging of A Course in Miracles and a lot of the other non-duality teachings, right? The body is a fence. All the traditions have at one end this fundamentalist quality. He said even the Zen, he even saw Zen teachers and masters have this, you have to sit and meditate for 40 minutes sitting this way, blah, 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 and nobody can do it but us. So on one end is the fundamentalists, and the other end are the mystics. And the mystics are the ones that you can use any tradition because the tradition doesn't matter. Like somehow something that we're attracted to more than others. But I don't know why. But being willing to know that anything that we could talk about isn't it, and being willing to do the work to get behind whatever it is we can talk about to have the experience is it. And it was kind of neat, having this conversation between someone who's feels like never really left his Roman Catholic heritage. And there are a lot of mystics that come from that heritage that we adore. One who's even alive today, right? Like, who doesn't love Richard Rohr? He's a Roman Catholic. And St. Francis. and Teresa of Avila and Meister Eckhart, they all come from that Roman Catholic heritage, but you wouldn't they don't spend much time in the rules and regulations of being part of the church. And then Bob really, spent so much time in the Zen tradition. And it's really, he said, if you can talk about it, um, then it's not it. Truth is beyond any concept. So I loved that part of this conversation too, embracing all of these traditions. And again, not looking to use any of these traditions to separate Hildegard of Bingham. Yeah. Um, but to know that all of them can point to truth. It's beautiful, really, right? When I was early on, when I went from early on, I became a spiritualist. I was very into the mystical and the magical and talking, doing all sorts of things. And the less spiritual people in my family got real scared and thought I was joining a cult. And there was a lot of whatever. My uncle Sidney, who was in synagogue, I come from a Jewish upbringing, every single morning. Like his life after retirement was a daily Orthodox synagogue, and then he would spend X number of hours in the Jewish VA handing out bags he made and talking to Jewish people in the hospital. And then he ran the Jersey City Meals on Wheels. That was his life, right? He just loved the fact that I connected with God. Totally didn't care what it was called past that. And um, that was the next thing that was really alive for me. No one's raising their hand yet. Um, Here's the other thing. Oh, Izzy, do you want to talk?
Since you want somebody to raise your hand, I'm just sitting here going to myself, I am so glad to be back in your presence, Cindy. I'll be really honest. I used to feel jealous of your ability to be a teacher, the abilities you have as a teacher. And thank God I've gotten over that. I'm just so glad to be back with you and everybody, even those that I don't know. But thank you for having this meeting.
Oh, you are so welcome. For the record, Izzy, John is right below you on my screen, and all these hearts are just going right up into you from his square.
Thanks, John.
Hey, Sandra.
Good morning. I love that I'm spending time with you again this week. Um, and I always say every week, I loved this podcast or this video. And it just spoke so simply. He spoke so simply and eloquently. And the things that you noted were things I noted. Like, it's fun. It's fun to talk about. I mean, I get excited talking about it. And then the other thing I really loved was he just shared his experience, the experience that you described. And one of my early frustrations was when I started listening to like Rupert Spira, Emoji, and the non-dual teachers, is they didn't want to hear people's stories. It seemed like they were always discouraging from hearing stories. And I get it, because you could go on a long time with your story and never get to the question. But I love hearing that. I think that's why I love the spaces that you create, because there's always a story, not a story, an experience. I found it ironic that they were pointing towards direct experience, all the time, but didn't really want to hear about the experiences. Or maybe they did, and I just was misinterpreting it. But do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I love listening to Rupert's teaching, but
Yeah.
I've never sat some with him. So I don't.
So I just the story, the experience. When I hear about people's direct experiences, I feel less alone. I feel like, oh yes, other people have had these experiences. It's ironic also that when you were talking about Catholics, I was raised a Roman Catholic, and for when I was a child, and I was in the second grade, I went to live with my grandmother for a while, and she was born in Italy, and she immigrated to this country. But that it was definitely a mystical experience with her. I never really thought about that until recently. And she was very devout and she loved the mystics. So that may have planted seeds for me. That may have been planted seeds way back. I thought this didn't happen until I was in my 40s. I'm rambling now. But anyway, I just like that this Harwood talked about his experience, and I also liked his, what was it, ATT minus T or something like that? Yeah,
ATA,
A minus T.
attending the actual minus thought.
Yeah, so I've been practicing that this week, and I like it. It's very similar to what I already do, but it's like mindfulness. But it really, I was in this morning. I was just into the music and eating strawberries, and because it was minus the tea, and that strawberry was the best strawberry I've ever eaten. I'll have to say, but yes, I love being here. I love talking about it. It's fun. Um, it's real. It feels very real here in this space with all of you. It's not so conceptual and intellectual, and which I like that too. I like that part too, but this part feels more real to me. So thank you.
All right. So a couple of things that are on my list based on all. Oh, so for the I'm loving this. This is God having fun with me. Amy on my screen is right below you, Sandra. So when Amy had the hearts going up, she went right into your square. I know that the squares are different with everyone, but I'm just letting you know what I'm seeing. So uh, I wrote down some quotes because I like when things are the same. One of the conversations that they had at the end, um, Ted, I guess his name is Ted, asked him to comment on this idea that Ramana Maharshi said that this is all a dream. And I loved that Bob came back and said, well, I have a different quote that says, that whole thing, but he didn't know the quote. Um, and I found that so interesting because I often listen to people talk about whether or not what we're experiencing is real or not, right? And it's such an interesting conversation. So the quote that I live with comes from the Vasistas Yoga. And the quote goes like this: the world is both real and unreal, like a wave in the ocean is real and unreal. And I got chills as I said it. And if anybody wants to talk about that quote, because for me, it's the perfect energy to be in. Like a wave doesn't stop being a wave while it's a wave, but it's never not the ocean.
Yes.
He was even talking about how a Zen master would take out the Zen stick and hit you over the head and tell you to wake up if you start talking about how I don't have to do anything because this is just a dream. Like he's like, having that conversation makes no sense. So, Izzy.
Yes, I want to say something about that, because when people keep saying who, not people, when in this tradition, the non-dual tradition or non-dual teaching, so often when we're told it's all one, but then we're told it's not, this, what we are really truly experiencing isn't real, it's a dream. I have a little disconnect with that, because I'm always awareness. Even when I'm blinded, even when I'm mesmerized, that's the word used. When I'm mesmerized by the content of experience and I'm forgetting, I'm still awareness then. I'm just having it in a, my attention is elsewhere. It's like my attention. So I have trouble, and I've talked about this before, when they say, well, you don't make any decisions, you don't make any choices. But I do as awareness. And because I am awareness. So if awareness is making the choices, I am making the choices. And so that's always been like a,
Yeah, I have a lot I could say about that, Sandra, and I will say a little bit because it's a Srinivasa quote that I'll make sure I get in. But I know that Izzy wanted to talk, and then Barbie's here twice, and one of her hands is raised, and so I'm assuming, and then Amy, and then I'll comment. But first, Izzy. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it that you brought up that the world is only is partially true, because I was sitting at the river last week and I was looking around, and it's my favorite river spot in the whole world, practically second favorite. Anyway, and looking at the trees and the river and the beauty, and I was really immersed in it. And what came to me is that the world is only relatively true. And that was huge to me, because that's something that I've been really grappling with for years, reading the Course in Miracles, it's all an illusion. And but how it that just never really sunk in with me, that it was just all an illusion. But when I heard the words, it's relatively true, it's relatively the term relatively true, that the word relative is what is the point here. It's in relationship to truth. It is not true, but there is a relative truth to it. So that's what, and then of course the day after, then I read something that said about the same thing. And it was like this huge light bulb went off for me. And anyway, I wanted to share that.
Thank you. There's a lot he lit up for me relative to cosmic consciousness downloads, but I'm not going to go there. I'm going to see what Barbie wants to say. I could literally talk about this, like the things he talked about in this audio for days, probably. Hey, Barbie.
Hey, the reason why I'm in two spots is because, are you hearing double?
No, no, no. You got it all set up right. It's just
Okay, okay. The reason why my video failed, but somehow I got on, so that's why I got two spots. But I love this video. An hour video took me like an hour and a half to watch, because I kept on going back. And about when you were talking about the waves and the ocean, isn't that like the fist you was talking about? It comes and goes.
well,
Okay.
sorta. Yeah. But
Okay.
just yeah, it's another way. If it works for you, then use the like he was when he was doing this analogy, he was pointing to when Ramana Maharshi's disciples were getting very, very upset because his body was going to drop. He was like, "Where do you think I'm going? Right? I'm not going anywhere." And the analogy to that was, where does the fist go when you open your hand?
Okay.
It's a little bit different than the wave analogy, because waves rise and fall in the ocean all the time, right? A wave is a movement in the ocean, but it's never not ocean. And our suffering comes from identifying as a unique wave, thinking that's who we are. We're not, we're the ocean. But our lives are this movement. And he did a wonderful job of talking about how to be in the movement without identifying as the movement. It was stunning. Yeah.
And I loved at the end, maybe reality is not what we think it is.
Yeah.
And I have one question. What was he talking about meta reality?
Well, so Course in Miracles, and we have a lot of Course in Miracles experts here, is a course. This is the way it's coming out for me to explain it. And I'm glad that Amy's hand is next in case you want to add to this. But here's how I want to explain that. Course in Miracles teaches that one of the best ways to raise in consciousness or whatever is through relationship. And one of the things you realize is that you're never in relationship when you're not in the flow or free, you're actually never in relationship with another. You're only in a relationship with your beliefs and your history and everything you think about another. And I've actually been having this visual of being one of 8 billion balls bumping around. And there's a projection of who I think you are that goes out into this world. It hits my edge and it comes back to me, right? So the meta universe is this, I'm about to change metaphors, but it's this collective human consciousness that says this is who we are. And it's all thoughts and notions and beliefs and ideas, but it's not alive. It's like dead. It's thinking, it's conditioning. And when that drops, that's when he experienced the tree and not how much the lumber was worth. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's okay if you don't understand.
Well, like yesterday, I didn't understand anything, but then when you were awakening together, it just hit me.
Yeah. Well, he talked about that a lot too, how you're showing up and you're practicing and you're practicing and you're practicing. It loosens things up, and then you walk away and something drops. It's the part of us that we're not, that doesn't understand. And it's being marinated in truth, and it loosens up enough and the truth drops and a new awareness appears. He mentioned that multiple times, and that was the experience you emailed me about last night, which is
And some at this point, it's like I don't know anything and let it all happen.
just keep showing up and doing the work. That's all. So yeah,
Thank you.
right, Amy?
Okay, first of all, I want to thank all of you for giving me the space to share this, because there's nowhere else that I can do this. That video, second of all, I know, as we all do, but I know, and I don't even know how to say I, because I am increasingly not identifying with this I person, which is a really hard thing to do in this world, because everybody wants you to be your name, your I, whoever, this person, this body. The video really came at a time for me where I was practicing self-inquiry and coming up with these against a wall with self-inquiry, because it's so much in the head, in the mind, the way that I was practicing it. And hearing the talk about self-inquiry shows you love. It shows you that you're loved. Well, that's not where I was. That's not what self-inquiry was showing me. So this video came at a time, and of course, everything is always, as Ndego says, for us. And Ndego puts that so clearly and so heartfeltly, with so much love. Everything is always for us, working with us. It's not working. That's not even the right words. It's just evolving for us. And we are that evolution. So what I loved is ATA-T. That triggered something in me that gave me more information that I'm not in the flow. I am the flow. I'm not in it. I am it. And all of this teaching for us is it's coming at us almost like, and this is just I'm sorry, my words are, I have so much I want to share, but I can't get it out. Each of us is like a sphere with innumerable points of access on that sphere, and consciousness is communicating with us on every single one of those access points all the time. And to just sit and accept the flow and feel the flow and be the flow and not resist anything, because you're only resisting yourself, that's all you have to do. And so relative reality, not real, it's all friggin' reality. It all is at the level that we are having the experience. But we are the experience. We are the levels. We are all of it. And so open, open. And we're completely eternal, infinite. And all of these experiences, it's like the sphere gets hit with points of light, of information. And then there comes a point where the whole sphere is lit up. It's all lit up.
She did it again, didn't she? Gorgeous image, Amy. I don't know if you can hear us, but I don't. Her vibration gets so high when she teaches. I don't think she freezes, except for when she teaches.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
It was,
Oh God.
you were like all lit up.
Okay. But what I wanted to say was that we're these spheres that think that we're a body, and consciousness is sending us these points of light of, and we may go through lifetimes of only getting hit with one point of light. But at some point we get hit with enough points of light that we cross the threshold and everything lights up, and we may have moments in this life where we get lit up and then we go back. We get lit up and we go back. But at another point, we get lit up and we just stay friggin' lit up. And that's what Mr. Harwood was that's what he was saying to me. And here's the other thing. I know that he's right because I have had the experience. And it wasn't through fucking self-inquiry. Excuse my language, but it wasn't through that. It was through the experience. And when we say, I love the truth, it's not the truth that comes through self-inquiry necessarily. I'm not denigrating self-inquiry in any way. It comes through the love of saying, what was that? And what was that? And what was that? And what was that? That's the love, is, oh, that's what I am. Is there more? Is there something more? And then there's love again. Thank you for letting me share this, because this is just really coming to me in so many ways that I can't even, I don't even know. There's no words for it. It's coming from all the time. So the thing for me is I am the flow. Anything that comes up in the flow of experience is me. And that's the love. I love myself and all the things that are coming up. And how many times have I heard those words or said that to myself? A million. But somehow in watching this, and I'm not just crediting this video, at this point in time, this sphere is lit up with multiple points of light. That's just what's happening right now. And I love you all because you are the light that allows me to express this. And when other folks would just kind of go, I don't know what you're talking about. So I love us, as Cindy says. Thank you.
So there's a number of things that are on my list of things to get through. I can't believe we've been hanging out for 45 minutes that all in my space are speaking to what you said, Amy. The first thing is he was very like he was asked, do you still practice Zen koans or meditation? He said no. Once like selfhood drops, you just do what you do. You do what you do when you do it. Izzy off and on through the years has taught me these things. This is just what I'm doing, you know. There's no right way or wrong way. The flow flows you there. And so much of what I've heard that, you know, the spiritual ego will keep us stuck in thinking there's a process to get us there. There isn't. Surrender is a good word for what gets us there, and the noticing. Um, but one of the things he really pointed to for me with his ATA minus A is this bringing the awareness into our lives and not keeping it on the cushion, right? He said the most important thing he shares with people that are interested is, you know, being with a tree without naming it a tree, just like David said, just tree. That's Michael Singer in my head. You know, seeing a bird without calling it a bird. And we're not really good at it. And he didn't say that you'd be good at it. He said, you can practice this when at a red light. You can practice it when you're taking a walk. You practice when you're in a meeting or waiting for a meeting, and it doesn't take you away from what you're doing. The thinking mind pulls you away. You know, that whole idea of driving 20 miles and having no clue where you were, the practice of being aware without naming things. So that was his version. I just wanted to point out that Regina has a whole playlist at Awakening Together she calls awareness games. Rana's played a lot of them. It's the same type of thing. She has these weekly games. You could watch these different YouTubes because our human minds get really bored. She has like, I don't know, Rana, I don't know how many games there are. There are 30 or 40 games. Joel Goldsmith, my buddy, says 20 times a day, stop for a minute to 3 minutes and just remind yourself who you are and then open yourself up to receive a message. He calls it practicing the presence. Course in Miracles. If you do the workbook lessons, there are a lot of them that say 15 times, you know, every 15 minutes. Amy was talking about it earlier this week. They all just point to the fact that, you know, yeah, an hour a day on the cushion is really pretty cool. And I think he called it lubricating the mind, but it's not where the secret sauce is. So then I'll give it to John. And then I'll give you my last quote that I wanted to make sure I said. But John, it's yours.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy, and thank you everybody for being here. I just love to be here, and thanks, Amy. You know what?
You muted yourself, John.
I muted myself. That's a metaphor. What was that? What was that? What was that? Oh my God, Izzy showed up. I haven't seen her forever. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about that. And all these things are happening. And you know what? I just want to share one thing that I feel inclined that's important for me to remind myself about, because I just heard about the lubrication, lubricating the mind, and the metaphors of the oceans and things like that. But I had my transmission fixed in my car yesterday for the, I don't know, the third time, but it's running so smoothly now. And I'm looking at that transmission. I'm thinking to myself this morning, oh, I never thought of that. This is running so smoothly, and this is in the flow. This knows how to slow down and speed up. It can go, it knows all, it can shift gears easily. Wherever it is, it knows how to shift gears. And just being there, it's present on the road, whatever's happening up this hill, at this corner. And I thought to myself, that is a brilliant metaphor for John to use as fixing his transmission. You know what happened yesterday? The guy took it and he said, John, you're almost out of fluid on your transmission. There was no fluid there, but now we topped it up. Now we're lubricated again, and we're off to the races. So I'm so excited about this. And before there was a clunking noise. I didn't know what was the matter. I thought this is the end of my transmission. But you know what? It was just something that happened when the fluid gets low, and where was it clunking in my life? And now it's then the issue about that it got drained out of there. All these things are such beautiful metaphors for my life, and I just really appreciate it so much that can be in the flow. That my transmission speaks directly to my life experience of being the transmitter, being the transmission, being in the flow of it. So thank you, folks, for allowing me to verbalize my loving thoughts and extending them to everyone in the hopes that that you'll find a metaphor for yourself that works as then, because it's so easy. It's so easy to just have that one picture. I don't have to have a million words, and I don't have to have blah blah blah. I love you. Thank you.
We love you, John. All right. Here's a quote. Oh, Sandra, go for it.
Okay, one of the things he said was that physical reality is part of reality. And that once you realize the self, everything is included.
Everything is God.
And that really spoke to me, and Amy, you were so eloquent. Thank you. But that, I think, speaks to that whole idea of us always trying to say this isn't real, and that is. Everything is included. Even if it is a projection, awareness is projecting. It's all included.
So the coffee meeting yesterday, which for the record is not recorded, but a lot of us was there. Like, I walked around with you in my heart all day long. I taught on it again at Awakening Together, and that's recorded. That prayer or that poem from St. John the Cross, and your share, and John, what John did in that meeting yesterday. Ron and I were talking about it afterwards. Absolutely convinced that he channeled like God or something. Like, even the tone of his voice changed. Very first time I ever wanted the Coffee with meeting to be recorded was when John was doing what he was doing. But anyway, I've been walking around knowing that Cindy has things that she wasn't going to be able to accept. It was too terrifying. It was too, brutal. And I just hadn't been focused on it. Like, I've been very effective at hanging out in these rooms and not looking at the things that terrify me. And somehow that St. John the Cross poem, which I'll read again if people want me to, and the sharing that took place in this room and then Awakening Together yesterday, is sinking in and recognizing that this too is God. This too is God. This too is God. And everything is a flow. So even our worst nightmare is only a temporary manifestation in the flow. And whose nightmare is it, right? So it was just extraordinary. So now I want to read this quote that isn't like that. And then I guess we're recording. I'll read the poem. Find it from St. John the Cross, and we'll see what happens. But this is a quote from Sirnizagadata Maharaj that represents to me pointing to what Bob was pointing to, right? Yes, I appear to hear and see and talk and act, but to me it just happens, as to you digestion or perspiration happens. The body-mind machine looks after it, but leaves me out of it. Just as you do not need to worry about growing hair, so I need not worry about words and actions. They just happen and leave me unconcerned. For in my world, nothing ever goes wrong. I don't have the poem right in front of me from St. John the Cross. I could just let you know that it's from Love Poems from God. And if you really want me to read it, I'll go and get it. But it literally talks about being beaten, senseless, and screaming out to God and God not answering, and the recognition that this too is a flow of God. And really been sitting with it, this idea that some things are acceptable and some things are not acceptable, and why, the invitation to purify this vessel of that distinction is what's happening. Wow. The next YouTube videos, it's hanging out there in the replays and links. All right. The Sirnizagadata Maharaj quote. Is that what you want, John? I have it written down, so I can email it to you, or I can email it, or maybe I'll stick it in the YouTube video replay if that works. I'll do that. Is that okay, John? You'll find it there. All right. Melanie, I just want to say I noticed you didn't say anything, so I miss your voice.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be with you. Your open door had got buried and I just found it and it was just yesterday. And so it's just just to be with you all is just so wonderful. And I felt so warmly welcomed always. So it's such a wonderful gift to be with you all. Thank you.
Just there are a few other people that haven't found their way here yet. So if you see them in other rooms and other places, just everybody's really invited here. Door, literally, you see how easy it is to just click the link. There's no rules or memberships or needing any type of background or anything. If you're inspired, please come, and please feel free to invite anyone and everyone. I love us very much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording because we're officially kind of done in like 2 minutes. And then for anyone that wants to hear the song that dropped into my space yesterday, a couple of you heard it a couple of times already. I'll play it again. And for the recording, it's the song it's called Human. And the line is, are we human or are we dancers? And every time I've been listening to this song over and over and again. And what is it we attach to this idea? And it's so perfect to this conversation. Like literally, we're clinging to this idea that we're human, but human is part of the wave, right? Dancing is the flow. And there are a lot of aspects to being human that require acceptance of separation. And I refuse to accept separation as what I am. This song also, I'm going to say it because I don't know who will be here at the end, also talks about things like grace and kindness disappearing. And I adore that too, because it's literally the same lesson that's in Leonard Cohen's Love Itself. Um, Good and bad disappear when words disappear. There's no more need for compassion and kindness if cruelty just becomes part of the oneness. So when he's talking about all these things disappearing, he's not talking about hell. He's talking about the word that's coming up is nirvana, right? He's talking about this space where we no longer need words. He's talking about, that place that Rumi talks about, beyond all right doing and wrongdoing, there's a field. So, if you're going to stay to listen to the song again, listen from that space of oneness. Love us very much. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say is that at Awakening Together in 1 hour, Rana's hosting a 30-minute. Look at that, Isabel. Rana's hosting a 30-minute session at Awakening Together in 1 hour. It's called Member Spotlight. And the concept behind this was to give whoever wants to speak about something that's on their mind the opportunity to talk about it for 10 or 15 minutes nonstop. And then a community is there to listen. It's for people who do not feel called to have a regular teaching spot, either here or at Awakening Together or anywhere else, but have something they want to share.
How do we access that?
Rana, can you put I am going to actually add a link to the sanctuary where I put the replays, because my teaching that I have in the links and replays is where I teach in that same spot. But I'm going to add a link directly to the sanctuary. But Rana is going to put it in the chat, and I am going to stop the recording.